What do the words community service mean to you?
To help out your community.
Giving back to the community and helping out other people.
It's helping the community out in any means necessary.
Helping the less fortunate and just doing good things to help the community.
Pitching in to do your part, your share, because I mean, being in a community, a good community isn't free. I mean, everyone should take part in it.
It's all about helping out your fellow man, but people my age really don't take it that seriously. They just think about themselves.
Have you ever done any community service work? How much and how often?
No, I haven't.
We're both Girl Scouts, so we do a lot of community, like we clean up parks sometimes, and also we do these fundraisers, and we also make baskets for people who can't afford stuff.
In my old high school, I did community service on the tech crew, which was lights and sounds for shows. I do car washes and pancake breakfasts at my church. We feed the homeless.
Just to help out my brother's buddy ball baseball league. I helped out for like 2 years.
I started a skate park committee to have a skate park in our town, and actually we made one. So that was pretty awesome.
I volunteered at a soup kitchen when I was younger though.
I've gone to group homes and older people, like older communities, and help out there too, like feed them, have conversations with them. There was this one man, he had no family at all, like nobody, but like he would always look forward to like talking to me about like just random things, like how his day was, like even if it was complaining about food, even though he was like bitter about everything, like complain, like he just like was happy to just talk to someone about it.
In the Gospel of Matthew, Christ tells us that those who inherit the kingdom will be those who serve the least of our brothers.
Christ said, "When I was hungry and you gave me food, I was thirsty and you gave me drink.
A stranger and you welcomed me, naked and you clothed me."
Ill and you cared for me. In prison and you visited me.
Part of our faith is not just about belief, but faith in action.
Serving others and serving the least of those in our communities and our world.
And recognizing the face of Christ in each person we serve.
Many of us already know what great joy comes from serving others.
And sometimes we know that there are times when the service can become a burden.
Community service, joy or burden. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Carolee.
And I'm Abe.
And this is Real Faith TV.
The teens on the street share with us the types of community service they participated in.
We'll hear from them again a little later in the show, as well as meet our spotlight guests, Woody and Nicola, who is the program coordinator for the Center for Faith Justice in Lawrenceville, New Jersey.
But first, let's meet our studio guests and find out how they are involved in community service.
Okay, they are Mary Kate, Sierra, Caitlin, Ricky, Felicity, and Cooper.
So tell me what kind of community service you have participated in.
I participate in like the ASPCA, and I help get cats and dogs adopted into nice families that will take care of them.
I help people discern their vocations and charity in my parish and around the diocese.
I help my pastor give away food to the needy.
I work for the American Cancer Association through my school.
I've volunteered with a program for the elderly at my church. I've also been an aide for religious education and an altar server and done some other different service projects with my school.
Yeah, I volunteer at my church and organize food drives for kids and make Christmas cards for them.
I volunteered at my church as an assistant teacher in the religious ed program, and I helped out in the class and helped to teach the kids.
I'm part of my youth group, and through my youth group, we've gone to a sister's convent and helped rebuild their house and their porch and stuff like that. And I also, when it's wintertime, I shovel my neighbors' driveways.
We can say that overall community service brings us joy to help others.
But there are at times when it seems like a burden.
Next, our spotlight guest, Woody and Nicola, tells us what community service means to her.
And the ways in which she has found it to be a burden.
Community service for me means extending God's love to others, especially those who are most in need. Community service comes in a variety of different ways. You can do community service for those you've never met before, or persons or individuals that are within your direct community, like your parish or your school. But community service is doing what you can with the gifts that you have to those especially who are most in need. Community service certainly could be a burden in the sense that you're being exposed to a lot of hard realities. Poverty is tough to face. Homelessness is very tough to face. And when you see it in the face of children who are most in need, it can be phenomenally burdensome because you're left with this hardness in your heart that says, what do I do? And what can I do? I'm really just one person. This is a world that's broken. This is a world that is in great need and says, we need help. And it's for a lot of individuals who don't have a voice of their own, undocumented immigrants who are too afraid to speak out on their own behalf in their situation. We have an enormous wealth in our world, and then there's a gargantuous gap for those individuals that don't have much. We don't have all the money in the world to save the world. We don't have all the energy in the world to invest all that to save the world. And we look at our brothers and sisters in Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East and say, but what can I do? But then there's obviously at the end of every burden, there's always a lot of joy and hope to say that I am doing what I'm called to do today to the best of my ability. And it's a communal effort. It certainly isn't individual.
I can understand how community service can be a burden and that it's tough to face homelessness and poverty and to know there's only so much you can do to help.
Let's go back to the teens on the street and find out if they have found any aspects on community service to be a burden.
It really isn't about yourself, it's about other people, so it really doesn't make a difference to me.
No, it was never a burden or a chore.
No, it's helping out others when they need it the most. If I did do community service, I wouldn't think it was a burden. I would think I would feel better about myself because I'm helping out my community.
It's never felt like a burden or a chore to me at all.
No, not really, because I was with my brother, who I live with, so it was fun to do.
It got in the way into school a little bit, just because by the time I got home it was a little bit tiring, but I mean, it was worth it.
What did you do to help you finish the work you started?
You can't be focused on yourself, you have to be focused on other people when you're thinking about these things. Like, a lot of people are less fortunate than I am, that's why I did.
I made sure to find something in that work that I started that made me want to keep coming back, and it was helping the people.
I just stuck with it and didn't quit.
We have fun while we're helping out other people.
It was just more of the relationships I gained with other people. That's what really helped me get through it. So it came on easier.
Yeah, I definitely have to disagree with some of the teens on the street because community service can definitely be a burden. I mean, we're only human, and sometimes you just don't want to have to get up early in the morning to go to the soup kitchen. But once you see the faces and the smiles that the people have that you're helping, it definitely makes it all worth it.
I like to share my community service with my friends. We're helping out the less fortunate, and we're having a great time while doing it. So the only time I really see it as a little bit of a burden is when I don't have any friends there.
I see it as almost like renewing yourself, like a rejuvenation, like it refreshes you during your day. So that gives you a better look on the world and invites God into your life more often. And you see Him in all those who you're helping.
I usually don't find it a burden in the sense of not wanting to do this. I almost always enjoy service when I'm doing it. The only issue that, I might run into is I get really busy and I like to do a lot of things. So I think one of the teens on the street was saying it's it can get in the way with school and, other commitments that you have.
It isn't easy to watch someone suffer.
It's even more difficult to know that you may not be able to completely end their suffering.
But it is our call as disciples of Christ to make an effort to relieve the suffering around us.
In the Pastoral Constitution in the Church of the Modern World, Gaudium et Spes, which is Latin for joys and hopes, Pope Paul VI wrote,
"The joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the people of this age,
especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted. These are the joys and hopes.
The griefs and anxieties of the followers of Christ."
This means that when we as Catholic Christians see suffering, especially among the poor,
we share in that suffering, and when we can do something to help, we should.
It isn't someone else's job, it's each of ours.
Spotlight guest Lydian felt the call to help those in need since her mom introduced her to service when she was a little girl.
Next, she tells us how that calling developed throughout her life, leading her to a joy-filled life of serving of others.
My mother was an orphan when she was a child and grew up in an orphanage and was raised by the Daughters of Charity. So I understood community service since I was a little girl. She understood what it meant to have the help from individuals who didn't know her, to serve her, to love her, to help her to grow, to be the woman she is today. And so that spirit of service was passed on to me. I can still remember the times that my mom introduced me to what service was when I was a little girl. She took me to this enormous facility for kids who had physical and mental handicaps. And from then on, I just fell in love with people, with those who were fragile, with those who really knew what the love of Christ was without ever saying a word. That's where it all began. I've done service throughout my life when I was in college. Every year I did a service immersion trip in Washington, D.C., in Nia Bay, Washington, and San Francisco, all kinds of places. One of my favorite organizations to do service with is Enable, and they serve adults with physical and mental handicaps. That's always an area or population that I love to serve with. I've worked at places like Task, the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen. I've worked with the elderly, child day centers that serve underprivileged children. Those are some of the ways that I continue to serve and to give back. I actually completed a year of service with the organization I work for now, the Center for Faith Justice. That was a few years ago, and have continued to make that a part of my life, not just something that I do on the weekends, but something that is in essence a part of my lifestyle and who I am as an individual. It's phenomenally important to give back and to continue to serve, more so than anything because the foundation for which I do it is rooted in my faith. It's the Christian faith that calls us to action. So of course I serve in that capacity, but it's also important for me as an individual because I love people, and we were created in relationships and to be in relationship with others. And so this is one way to extend myself and do the works of charity and to love people through that, and to also be invited into the relationships that God has offered us, so that we may be able to see the face of poverty, the face of love, the face of suffering, but also the face of joy and hope in other people.
You know, I really like what she was saying about living in relationships with other people. And, you know, I think that God is calling us to really serve others, and when we do that, that we can see God's face in the faces of other people. When we do service, you know, God will give us those opportunities. It's really our responsibility to give back, you know, for everything that God has blessed us with. We can show that we love God by carrying on Jesus' work and loving others.
And she's really shown like what true faith in the Lord is, what true faith in community service. She really has given herself to others and really sacrificed her time for a better good, to show true love of God and true love of service.
For anyone who calls himself Christian, follows the teachings of Jesus, I mean, that faith in and of itself does call us to do service. In Jesus' final lesson, he died on the cross, like to show us finally, like that's how we're supposed to serve. We're supposed to be that willing to give ourselves up.
I liked your example about how Jesus died on the cross and how he gave everything, and it's trying to show us how we should give all of us. He wants us to give ourselves spiritually and help everybody we can.
And I think it's also that we're called to have humility and, you know, really like trying to see the face of God in other people, you know, not just like working for like, oh, you know, like I want to have so many service hours so that everybody's going to think like I'm such a great person. You know, it's really like, I think it's quality over quantity, and that it's most important to just like, you know, really like have your heart fully invested in what you're doing.
And like she said, you can find yourself through service. It becomes part of your life. And like I know that sometimes in the beginning we feel like it's a burden, but then once you meet people there, it becomes part of your daily life, and it's just part of who you are.
Next, Whittian shares a story which had brought about equal amounts of joy and burden while volunteering at a soup kitchen.
The joy was seeing the happiness on the children's faces when she gave them loaves of bread.
The burden was the excruciating pain she felt, recognizing the hunger they felt.
Last summer, we were working with the middle school students in our program called Service Works. We went to Elijah's Promise, which is a soup kitchen up in New Brunswick. It's an incredible organization that serves men and women who are hungry. Individuals who come to share in a meal don't stand in line. The volunteers stand in line and then serve them so that they may really experience the dignity of what it means to be served. So this particular day at the end of the shift, most of the patrons had already been served and were heading out, but there were two men that walked through the door, and each of them had a small child. And they'd obviously never been there before because they approached the soup line and they didn't know that they weren't supposed to. So I went ahead and in my very, very broken Spanish, I led them to the table. And before I knew it, my students, within seconds, had that food ready for them, and they were already sitting down. And all they could do was just look around and just say thank you. And they were kind of stunned, like, what's happening here? At the end of their meal, one of the little kids came and approached me and tugged at my shirt and said, "Excuse me, may I have a bag?" And I was just kind of stunned, looking around like, what do you need a bag for? And they pointed to this rack that had a whole bunch of bread that was donated. It was maybe a day old, maybe 2 days old. So I said, of course. So I gave them the bags and I said, which one do you want? One of the kids pointed to the bread. So I grabbed the bread, I put it in his bag, and the little girl pointed, I grabbed that bread, and then I just stopped for a minute. And I'm like, what am I doing? So I just started taking all the bread and stuffing their bags. And at that moment, I realized these kids are starving. And all I have to offer them is bread, and it's day-old bread. And that moment was really an excruciating moment for me, because it's one thing to serve men and women who are poor and homeless, and it's another to serve kids. They just started laughing at me, and it was such a joyous moment. And they were getting ready to leave, and one of the dads comes up to me, just stood there very, very still for a moment with tears streaming down his face. And all he said to me was, "Thank you so much, thank you." That was a huge turning point for me in my faith and in my work. Even though I've had a million of those, I still encounter those heart-stopping moments.
Yeah, an experience that I had was a few years ago where I went to a nursing home to put on a play for the elderly about the resurrection of Jesus. And I played the role of Jesus. And then we walked around and we gave gifts out to people. You would walk into the rooms and you would see the people just sitting there like in a chair by themselves or laying on their beds. But when we walked in there and we said Happy Easter to them and we handed them the gifts, they were so delighted to see people. So many of them started smiling. You know, it was heart-wrenching, and it was a good experience at the same time. Like, it warmed my heart to see them smile.
At my church, we also went to nursing homes, singing and dancing for them, doing their nails and stuff, and playing games with them. And just to see them smile makes us smile, and it's just a joyous moment.
I volunteered at a blind center, and we put on a play for them, a Christmas play, and we also sang Christmas songs to them and stuff. It was good.
Something that makes doing something hard for people is when you're doing the best you can to try and help them, and the best isn't good enough. I've had friends that have gone and they've helped like kids that have like leukemia. They've helped them feel better like consciously, but they couldn't do anything about their body, and they ended up passing away, and they felt really bad.
It's not just serving and doing good for others. You're sort of moved and you're changed. You don't stay the same. You want to keep giving more.
At the program that I volunteer with the elderly, it's just like, it's a way for them to, get out of the house and just like, spend some social time with each other. One time I was sitting there talking to one of the ladies there. She was telling me how her husband's health was really suffering, and they didn't really know what it was, but he was just very, very ill. And I felt so bad because he's just one of the nicest people, like always friendly and pleasant to talk to, and always just, trying to make you happy, even though we're there volunteering, trying to make all of them happy. It made me think there's nothing that I can do to help her husband, but it just made me want so much more to try harder to, make her feel better about what was going on, even for a little while.
The late Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta is one of our more contemporary role models of holy people who gave their lives to service.
She worked in the gutters of Calcutta, India, with the poorest of the poor.
She fed and clothed them, prayed with them,
and dedicated her life to people who others might say were not valuable to society.
This great generosity of heart to make herself last and put others first in constant service and love was never easy.
But if you have ever seen a picture of this old and wrinkled Mother Teresa, you only need to look at her face to see real beauty, and her eyes to see real joy.
Sometime, surely, she'll be named an official saint in the Catholic Church. Mother Teresa truly answered God's call to serve the least of her brothers and sisters.
Next, the teens on the street tell us if they have felt the call of community service.
And if doing it can bring you closer to God.
Yes, I definitely feel like I'm called to do community service.
I do feel called to do it because if I'm not going to pitch in, then who will?
Not really. I don't really think about it that much. I mean, I like helping other people.
Not really calling. I mean, it felt good doing it. Like, at the end of the day, it felt good, like, just knowing that you did something for somebody else besides yourself.
Not so much called for, but I feel like once you do it, because I've had to do it for my confirmation and stuff like that, but I feel like afterwards I would definitely do it more.
If you're just looking out for yourself, then you're really not following the Bible or your religion at all.
How does community service bring you closer to God or strengthen your relationship with God?
I mean, if you're doing community service, you're doing the right thing. So yes, that's what God wants.
I am Christian. I believe in Jesus and everything, but I just feel like it's the right thing to do.
And do you think that's because like you've learned it in your religion?
Yeah, I believe I've learned it in my religion. My grandma always talks about like, oh, you got to help out and stuff.
Actually, a really tough question for me because I'm kind of on the fence right now with that kind of stuff.
Service helps strengthen my relationship because it's through my church. So I'm able to kind of speak the word that I've learned the week before at service to who I'm talking to.
Well, I guess it brings you closer to God in the sense that you're doing what He wanted you to do. He says that everyone should do good and do what's best for everybody else and not be selfish.
It strengthens my relationship because like you get to interact with other people and like know them on another level with people you don't even know, which I guess is the whole point of it. I mean, like you don't even know anyone and you just are willing to do something for them.
Do you feel any special calling to do community service? And is it something you think you'll continue to do throughout your life?
I think we as Christians, we should be able to go out anyway and help others.
I personally love community service, so I believe that I'll be doing it throughout my life. And it's not because I'm forced to, or in my religion they say I should do it. It's out of the pure joy and seeing it in people's faces and having fun while doing it and supporting a cause.
Yeah, same here. It just brings happiness into my life. It makes me feel like I'm actually doing something. It makes me feel like I'm giving to others and that I'm doing what Christ wants, like she said, that one girl on there. It's doing what the Lord asks of you, giving yourself and holding back nothing.
I feel that like it's my job to help people in the world. Like that's how people see us. Like if we don't do anything, how are we going to help society grow?
In like high school, it's so easy for us to do community service almost because it's like we have to. And as Catholics, like we're taught that it's still part of who we are and that we always have to continue doing it. We should just feel like it's right.
I think service has become a really big part of my life, and it's just something that I enjoy, you know, like someone else said, it's like not because you have to, you know, but just because like you like it. So I think that I'll continue with it for a long time.
Yeah, I'll definitely be doing community service more often, and maybe as the years go by, like when I get older, maybe an adult too, because I feel that I can give them hope by volunteering in my community and other communities too.
Many of the teens on the street felt that participating in community service can bring you closer to God.
Next, Whittian tells us how this is definitely true for her.
A lot of individuals would say that community service helps them to grow in their faith, and it's really important. And the way I believe in which it does that is it connects them to humanity. And because humanity is such a beautiful part of creation, clearly. So I think community service, it asks questions about purpose and about life and about who God is and what we can do. And so it draws individuals back to the church that says there's something greater, and I want to be a part of a community that continues to love those who are most in need. I definitely believe that service is a reflection of my relationship with God because I see the face of God in those individuals who I serve. They help me to grow as an individual in many, many ways in my faith. First, they offer me the reality of what actually exists in our world. And second, with that reality, they show me and reveal to me the hope of God in relationships and in the power of God's love and what it can do, that the fact that it can transform lives, it can transform the world, so that love is always captured in any service that I do. And because God is love, then God is present in that experience and in that interaction. If we are the body of Christ and we are all His hands and feet, I become whole with the body of Christ because I'm understanding and being connected to God through the body that is Him, through the church, through individuals that don't belong to the church, because we're all God's children. I think of the story of the paralytic whose 4 friends lifted him on that mat. They climbed that roof and led him down to Jesus. And I think about that. A lot of the time, those who are most in need can't walk. We need to bring them to Christ. A Good Samaritan is the easiest one, really, that captures the need to help our brothers and sisters who are really fallen and in need of a helping hand.
Personally, every time I do community service, see a smile on someone's face, or not even so much as do community service, but, you know, give money to someone who needs it, or, you know, do something nice for someone, that definitely helps me to see God in that person.
Like Whittian said, like it's about love, like it's all about love, you know, loving each other God's love for us that will hopefully, you know, inspire us to go and do good in the world.
Well, I actually like what she said about like the paralytic. Like, it's not just somebody who's paralyzed. It could be a friend who has a drug addiction, someone who needs help with like getting a household together, somebody who needs money, somebody who needs food. And by doing that, we help them to see that there's a greater good in the world and that Christ works through all of us.
Being regular teenagers, we like complain about, we want a new pair of shoes, we want a new shirt. And like, I know I do it every single day, and I come home from school because something bad happened, and then I go to do community service and I realize that I really am lucky. You go and you see like little kids or adults that have disabilities, and they love you, and they don't have conditions, they're just open. As people say, to love somebody is just to see the face of God. So like, community service brings you so close to God, and sometimes we don't even realize it.
Jesus told us on the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God."
This can apply to service in this way.
Our hearts are so cluttered up with our own issues and needs and things we want for ourselves,
Which makes it difficult to even see others around us and what they need.
when we can clear out all the clutter and have a pure heart that is open to others, and our perspectives change.
When we can look at the poor and the needy and truly see God in each of them,
Then we can experience the joy in knowing that we are serving Christ,
and that we are sharing our own heart with people of great dignity.
that we are serving the least of our brother.
Share with us your own stories of finding joy in community service,
Contact us at RealfaithTV.com,
or share your thoughts with us on Twitter.
and we'll leave you today with this prayer.
Jesus, you washed the feet of your disciples and showed us the way of service and love.
You made yourself the least of us by being born in a manger with sheep and cows.
And put to death with common criminals.
Help us to be aware that we walk in your footsteps by reaching out to the poor and the needy.
And that there is great joy in letting go of selfishness and serving others. Amen. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.